Have you ever experienced something so inexplicable, so haunting, that it made you question everything you thought you knew about life, death, and the thin veil that separates them? What if I told you that on the night before my granddaughter's funeral, I heard a cry, a faint, desperate cry coming from her coffin? This is not a story for the faint of heart. It's a tale of love, loss, and a mystery that defies all logic. So sit back and let me take you on a journey that will leave you questioning the very fabric of reality. I've noticed only 98% of you who watch haven't subscribed. Come on, guys, show some love and support. Thanks a bunch to those who have already subscribed. The air was heavy with grief, the kind that settles in your chest and makes it hard to breathe. The house was quiet, too quiet, as if the walls themselves were mourning the loss of my sweet granddaughter, Emily. She was only 7 years old, taken from us far too soon by a sudden illness that no one saw coming. The funeral was scheduled for the next day, and her small white coffin sat in the living room, surrounded by flowers and the soft glow of candlelight. It was a scene of unbearable sadness, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night. The night before. It was late, well past midnight, and I couldn't sleep. The weight of my grief was too much to bear, so I decided to sit with Emily one last time. I wanted to be near her, to feel her presence, even if it was just the cold, lifeless shell that remained. I sat in the dimly lit room, staring at the coffin, my mind racing with memories of her laughter, her smile, the way she would run to me with open arms, calling me Grandma. The pain was unbearable, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. And then it happened. At first, I thought I was imagining it, a faint, almost imperceptible sound. But as I strained to listen, it grew louder, more distinct. It was a cry, a soft, whimpering cry, coming from inside the coffin. My heart stopped. I froze, unable to move, unable to breathe. Was I losing my mind? Was this some cruel trick of my grief-stricken brain? But no, the sound was real. It was coming from Emily's coffin. The cry. I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed by fear and disbelief. The cry continued, growing more desperate, more urgent. It was her voice, Emily's voice. I would recognize it anywhere. But how? How could this be? She was gone. I had seen her lifeless body, had kissed her cold forehead goodbye. And yet there was no denying what I was hearing. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I stood up and approached the coffin. My hands trembled as I reached for the lid. I hesitated, my mind racing with 1,000 questions, 1,000 fears. What if I was wrong? What if this was some kind of cruel hallucination? But the cry was real and it was coming from inside. I had to know. With a deep breath, I lifted the lid. The revelation. What I saw inside will haunt me for the rest of my days. Emily was there, just as I had left her. Her small body dressed in her favorite pink dress, her hands folded over her chest. But her eyes were open, wide with fear, and tears streamed down her cheeks. She was alive. I don't know how it was possible. I don't know why or how she'd come back to us. But in that moment, none of that mattered. All that mattered was that she was here. She was alive, and she needed me. I reached into the coffin and lifted her out, holding her close to my chest. She clung to me, her tiny body trembling, her cries muffled against my shoulder. I rocked her gently, whispering words of comfort, though I was barely able to speak through my own tears. The aftermath. The hours that followed were a blur. I called for help, and soon the house was filled with paramedics, police, and family members, all of them as shocked and bewildered as I was. Emily was rushed to the hospital, where doctors confirmed that she was indeed alive. They couldn't explain it. They ran every test, every scan, but there was no medical explanation for what had happened. It was a miracle, plain and simple. But as the days turned into weeks and the initial shock began to fade, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Emily was different. She looked the same, sounded the same, but there was something in her eyes, something that hadn't been there before. She would stare off into space for hours, as if she were seeing something that no one else could see. And sometimes, late at night, I would hear her whispering to someone or something in her room, even though she was alone. The mystery deepens. I tried to convince myself that it was just the trauma of what she had been through, that she would eventually return to her old self. But the more time passed, the more I began to suspect that something was terribly wrong. Emily would say things that a 7-year-old shouldn't know, things that sent chills down my spine. She would talk about the other side, about the ones who tried to keep her. She would describe places and people that she couldn't possibly have known about, and she would do it with a clarity and detail that was unnerving. And then there were the dreams. She would wake up screaming night after night, crying about the man in the shadows who was coming for her. I would hold her, comfort her, but nothing I did could ease her terror. It was as if she had brought something back with her from the other side, something dark and malevolent. The final confrontation. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know the truth. I sat Emily down and asked her, point blank, what had happened to her. At first she was hesitant, her eyes darting around the room as if she were afraid someone or something might be listening. But finally she began to speak. She told me about a place that was neither here nor there, a place of darkness and light, where the souls of the dead wandered, lost and confused. She told me about the man in the shadows, a figure who had tried to keep her there, to prevent her from returning to the world of the living. She had fought him, she said, with all the strength she had, and she had managed to escape. But he had warned her that he would come for her, that he would never stop until he had her back. As she spoke, I felt a cold dread settle over me. This wasn't just a child's imagination running wild. This was something real, something terrifying. And I knew deep in my heart that we were in danger. The resolution. I won't go into the details of what happened next. Some things are better left unsaid, but I will tell you this. We fought. We fought with everything we had, and in the end, we managed to banish the darkness that had followed Emily back from the other side. But it came at a cost. Emily was never the same after that. She was quieter, more withdrawn, as if a part of her had been left behind in that dark place. As for me, I carry the weight of what happened every day. I still hear that cry in my dreams, still see the fear in Emily's eyes when she talks about the man in the shadows. But I also carry the knowledge that love, true love, is stronger than anything, even death. So what do you think? Was it a miracle or something more sinister? I'll leave that for you to decide. But before you go, I want to ask you a favor. If this story moved you, if it made you think or feel or question, then please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts, your theories, your own experiences with the unexplained. Because stories like this, they're meant to be shared. They're meant to remind us that there's more to this world than what we can see, and that sometimes the most extraordinary things happen when we least expect them. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the line between life and death is thinner than we think. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and never stop seeking the truth.